What's going on, guys? Kalipas Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the T-Mobile Revvl V Plus 5G and going over what kind of value you get when you spend $199 on this phone. Now keep in mind, this isn't always going to be the exact price of this phone. It really varies depending on the situation, and in some cases you might even be able to get the phone for free, but this is around the general range that this phone was originally priced at. Now before we go any further though, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. But with that being said, let's get into the video. So this phone has a 6.82-inch IPS LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 263, and an aspect ratio of 20:9. We got a water drop notch here for the front-facing camera, and this camera is 16 megapixels. Overall, the display specs quality-wise aren't really that impressive. I mean, a 720p display, not terrible, but also not great. Really nothing out of the ordinary for a phone in this price range. But one thing that really stands out to me is the sheer size of the display. It's a really impressive size, and that's gonna be great for content consumption. So if you're streaming a video, viewing photos, playing a game, even just reading, everything is of course gonna show up so much larger on this display. So you're gonna get a better experience in general. And being that this is pretty much the main advantage a phone in this price range can typically have over another one, since very few phones around this price range have 1080p displays or anything like that, this phone does have a really good display compared to its competitors. Now there is, however, one drawback of having a large display like this, and that is the phone itself is just so much larger. I mean, look at this thing. It's a pretty big phone, and if you don't want to carry around a bulky device like this, then the phone being this big is definitely going to be a drawback. But at the same time, if you do a lot of content consumption, then maybe the benefit of having a large display is going to outweigh that. As far as the overall design goes, I personally think it could be a little bit better. The phone, like I said before, is a little bit bulky, and it also has some certain spots that could be improved, like for example the bezel down here and the water drop notch up here. I think that this could be a little bit better. If the phone had a more sleek design that's not so sharp at the edges, then it would have a nicer, more modern look. Replace the water drop notch with a hole punch front-facing camera. That's going to improve things as well. So there are lots of areas where this phone can be improved as far as the aesthetics go and as far as just the general bulk of the device itself goes. But overall, I have seen a lot worse, so it's not the end of the world. For storage, this phone has 64 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion. Pretty standard for a phone in this price range. Not super impressive, but I have seen phones around the same price that only have 32. And for the average user, 64 gigabytes will honestly be plenty. The only time you're really gonna need more than that is if you're more of a power user, if you have lots of apps, app data, that sort of thing. And honestly, even if you have lots of photos and videos, the microSD card really does work. But at the same time, I personally feel like it's so much more convenient to have everything in one place, just on the phone itself. So if you are a power user, you might consider looking for a device that has more storage than this. But if you're not, if you're just a regular everyday user who has your standard apps and that sort of thing, then you should be fine. This phone does not have wireless charging, no big surprise there. Pretty much no phone that's not a flagship phone has that feature, but it does have a real nice fingerprint scanner and face unlock too. Having both options is always a good thing. The fingerprint scanner is actually right here on the power key, and I like the little pink accent they put on it. It's a really tasteful addition, and along with this graphic right here on the back, it ties the whole look together. So let's give the fingerprint scanner a try and see how well it works. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So this fingerprint scanner is real fast and responsive. I have no complaints here. So we're gonna take a look at the rear camera setup. Back here, we got a triple camera with a 16 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera for portrait mode, so not a bad setup at all. The only thing it's really missing is the macro camera, I'm personally not really much of a macro camera user, but if you are, you're going to want to keep this in mind and go with a phone that actually does have a macro camera. Overall, the phone does take really good pictures and the camera has a decent amount of features. So if you are looking for a phone that you want to use to take pictures you'll actually keep, whether it's for social media or something else, this phone is going to get the job done. For video, this phone has a max quality of 2K in the rear and the front cameras. I had to double check that because usually if a phone in this price range can actually shoot videos in a resolution above 1080p, it typically can only do it in the rear camera and not the front, but this phone actually can shoot 2K in the front facing camera, so that is pretty impressive. I don't know how you guys feel about 2K in and of itself. I feel like the quality is more of an unnecessary middleman between 1080p and 4K, but that's just me. If you like that feature, if you want to be able to shoot in 2K, then this phone will be great for you. Internally, this phone is getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processor. I ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on the phone and it came back with a single core score of 541 and a multi-core score of 1692. This is probably the most significant feature of this phone. It has a really powerful processor, and with this much processing power, you're gonna be able to do pretty much anything that you'd reasonably want to do with a phone on a daily basis. Sure, it's not gonna be exactly flagship level. Today's flagship phones have over double this, but at the same time, it's gonna be able to handle pretty much everything. Maybe just not as fast with the super high-end activities like maybe playing Fortnite or video editing with a super large file, something like that. But for day-to-day tasks like browsing the web, going on social media, that sort of thing, it's gonna be able to handle that like it's nothing, and it's gonna be a whole lot better than most other phones in this price range. This phone has a 5000 milliamp hour battery that supports 18 watt fast charging, so that's good for several different reasons. First of all, life throughout the day, you're probably, even if you use your phone a lot, not really gonna have to charge your phone during the daytime because the battery is so large and it's gonna have so much life per charge. The other cool thing about it is with a large battery like this, it's gonna have way more longevity than other phones with smaller batteries like the iPhone 12, for example, that has just over a 2800 milliamp hour battery, so about half the size of this one. This phone's gonna last much longer down the road because as batteries degrade, if it's a larger battery, it's not going to really affect the battery performance nearly as quickly as with a smaller battery. So if you like to keep one phone for a long period of time without having to replace it, then a battery like this is going to be a huge asset to you. The other nice thing about this battery is the fast charging. Most phones around this price range and even above, just in general, mid-level smartphones typically have somewhere between 10 and 18 watt fast charging, 18 being on the high end, and of course, being able to support 18 watt fast charging, this phone is definitely on the high end. So if you ever are in a situation where you have to charge up your battery a little bit faster, maybe it's almost dead and you just want to give it a little life, that's where the fast charging is really going to help out. Another thing this phone has that lots of other phones around its price range don't is NFC. In case you don't know what that is, NFC is the technology behind contactless mobile payment services like Google Pay, Samsung Pay, Apple Pay, all that. And without NFC, you can't use any of those features. And I think those features are really important since they're becoming more and more widely used. I feel like every phone should have it. Unfortunately, it's not like that, but at least this phone does, so that's good. So in conclusion, when you spend $199 on this phone, what kind of value are you getting out of it? Honestly, even if you do pay that much for this phone, I think it's still a great value. You're getting a phone with a huge display, a decent amount of storage, a nice camera setup that can take some pretty good pictures, the ability to shoot 2K videos, one of the fastest processors you can get in this phone's price range, NFC, and a really large battery that supports some really strong fast charging. So overall, you're getting a whole lot of value even if you spend $199 on the phone, and most likely you probably won't if you get the right deal. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video.